Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. Have you ever thought about something so much that it starts to lose meaning? That's where I'm at with comic books these days. It's art that gets kept inside boxes, and it is perhaps my favorite form of art. But what other kind of art gets preserved where nobody can see or enjoy it? Nobody but me knows what's in my comic book collection. Comic books are a deeply personal form of collecting art. Pull lists are a great example of this. At my local comic shop, I have no idea how many pull lists they maintain or what's on them. The only people who know your pull list are probably you and the couple of employees that work at the comic book shop. Buying and reading comics is one of the most solitary experiences I do. Don't get me wrong, I love going to the comic book shop, ordering new comics, and eventually getting to purchase those new comics. And it's a mostly fantastic experience. But those few minutes when I'm going to have my box pulled and am ordering new stuff, that's the only time during the week that I get a chance to talk to somebody else about comics. This channel has reached over 10,000 subscribers, mostly from being a Marvel recap channel. But that's not what I read. And I'm not here to hate on Marvel because I love Marvel. Marvel brought me to comics. We need Marvel to grow the industry and keep bringing in new readers. The same is true of DC and Image, but I recognize that many of these products aren't marketed with me in mind. And that's okay because they're trying to reach a newer and younger audience. They don't need to reach me. I'm here. I'm a rock. I'm going to keep buying comics. For anybody who wants to know what I don't like about modern Marvel, it has nothing to do with being woke or their politics or what they do with the characters. I'm bored by the stories they are telling and how they are telling them. I've I've tried to read I've tried to read some of the big crossover events of the past few years, and I just don't care. Empire, Judgment, X Swords, and Gods all come to mind. I've dropped all of my Marvel monthly series. Being bored might be the biggest sin of all. So, in order to buy comics that interest me, I have to spend more and more time casting a wider and wider net to find those comics. And in a future video, I'll share how I find the comics I want to read. So, what do I read outside of Spawn? I mostly read mini comics, compilation magazines, one shots, and creator driven projects. I read a lot of horror and science fiction comics, but what really excites me is the more bizarre stuff that reaches the market. Sometimes I'll purchase a product just because I think it's a beautiful train wreck of a project. In order to find good comics, I end up buying plenty of comics that I don't like. I spend a lot of time and money wading through the trenches to come up with a few gems. There are a lot of series that start out with a great first issue that I've lost interest in before the end of issue number two. Recent ongoing series that committed this sin are Animal Pound, Humbaba, and Feral. I won't cover those on the channel because after two issues, I'm not as interested as I was. I'd rather talk about the comics that get me excited to read new comics each week than be a recap channel. For anybody watching this, I encourage you to comment below the last time you bought a comic book. What was it? I'm curious as to what you're reading or enjoying or not enjoying. And if it's been a while since you bought a comic book, or maybe even never have, and you are watching a channel like mine, if there is one thing I can encourage you to do, it's to buy a comic book. The comic book shop is the lifeblood of this industry. The comic book shop is where I buy most of my monthly comics. But what if you don't have a local shop, or you don't like the person who runs it, or the thought of setting up a box is too intimidating? Then go to a big box store like Walmart or Barnes and Noble and pick up some graphic novels. Or better yet, find an artist or comic book creator online or publishing company on Instagram or Kickstarter and support projects you want to see. Buy something you think looks cool directly from a creator. I'm going to keep doing short indie reviews and maybe some longer ones, but I have to change how I do reviews. I can't be a recap channel any longer. My thoughts and interpretations of fair use have changed over the past 10 years. I've considered doing a video on the ethics of recap channels, but it's a big, messy conversation to have, and I'm not a lawyer. I do know that I feel differently about sharing art when I'm talking about 50-year-old comics versus discussing newer comics. This was especially true before Marvel Universe became a thing, or before they had the huge selection that is now available. When I started this channel, I felt like I was discussing topics people couldn't explore on their own because the resources weren't available. Those resources are now available and they've been packaged into a new product. I am a huge fan of Marvel Universe as a product. I think the yearly price is more than fair if you are interested in reading comics versus collecting comics, or if you just want to stay abreast of the latest big crossover event without investing $100. Marvel Universe has made the need Cosmic Comics was fulfilling obsolete because now you can just go and read those comics. You couldn't do that when I started this channel. That changes the equation for fair use. I started this channel by talking about comics that Marvel was no longer selling and that had been out of print for decades. There wasn't a distribution network for Marvel to make money off of those older comics at the time, but now there is. So I want to shift the focus of this channel back to comics that don't have a digital distribution network for all of their past and present comics. I want to keep talking about things that excite me when it comes to reading comics. This leads me to the problem of discussing newer independent comics because I don't want to share their art or product outside of the promotional materials that have already been released, which means that I might need to step in front of the camera to help fill that void. Bear with me while I try to find this new voice. The upside should be more videos. I've also got a running list of videos I'd like to do about the comic book industry instead of individual comic books. That's it. Again, feel free to share the last comic book you purchased in the comments section below. I want to do a video on pull lists soon, so save your pull list for that. For more content like this, hit that like button below. I appreciate every single one of those thumbs up. Cosmic Comics, I'm out.